Seawater composition. Almost anything can be found in seawater, including dissolved materials from Earth's crust and materials released from organisms. The most important components are salinity, temperature, dissolved gases, nutrients, and pH. This salinity map showing areas of high salinity in green, medium salinity in blue, and low salinity in purple. Salinity is rather stable, but areas in North America, South Atlantic, South Pacific, Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea, Red Sea, and Mediterranean Sea tend to be a little high. These areas are seen in green. Areas near Antarctica, the Arctic Ocean, Southeast Asia, and the west coast of North and Central America tend to be low. These areas can be seen in purple. The salinity of seawater is usually 35 parts per thousand in most marine areas. The types of salt is varied, but most is the same as table salt or sodium chloride. Although the ocean tastes very salty, it is actually a low concentration. These chemical ions contribute to seawater's salinity, although they are not directly salt. Chemical ions include chloride at 19.345 parts per thousand, and the proportion of salinity is 55. The chemical ion proportion of salinity then goes down from here. From chloride to sodium, sulfate, magnesium, calcium, potassium, bicarbonate, bromide, borate, strontium, fluoride, and other chemical ions. The lowest amount of concentration in the average seawater is for other chemical ions at less than 0.001 parts per thousand, with a proportion of total salinity at less than 0.001 parts per thousand. The measurements listed in the table above come from Castro and Huber's marine biology textbook. Variations occur in ocean salinity due to several factors. The most common factor is the relative amount of evaporation or precipitation in an area. If there is more evaporation than precipitation, the salinity increases. If there is more precipitation than evaporation, the salinity decreases. Another factor that can change the salinity in the ocean is due to a very large river emptying into the ocean. The runoff from most small streams and rivers is quickly mixed with ocean water by the currents and has little effect on salinity. But larger rivers, like the Amazon River in South America, may make the ocean have little or no salt content for over a mile or more out to sea. The freezing and thawing of ice also affects salinity. The thawing of large icebergs made of frozen fresh water and lacking any salt will decrease the salinity, while the actual freezing of salt water will increase the salinity temporarily. This temporary increase happens in the first stages of the freezing of seawater, when small ice crystals form at about -2 degrees centigrade. These tiny needle-like ice crystals are frozen fresh water, and the salts are not part of them, so the liquid between these crystals becomes increasingly salty to the point of it being a brine. Eventually, though, as seawater freezes, the ice crystals tap areas with brine, and the entire large piece of frozen seawater ice floe is salty. Many marine organisms are highly affected by changes in salinity. This is because of a process called osmosis, which is the ability of water to move in and out of living cells in response to a concentration of a dissolved material until an equilibrium is reached. In general, the dissolved material does not easily cross the cell membrane, so the water flows by osmosis to form an equilibrium. Marine organisms respond to this as either being osmotic conformers, also called poikilosmotic, or osmotic regulators, or homeosmotic. The temperature of seawater varies with the amount of sun that hits that area. This includes the length of time as well as the angle of the sun's rays. The longer the time and the more direct the rays of sun fall in the ocean, the greater the temperature of seawater. Thus, tropical areas that get more year-round sun and more direct sun, around 90 degrees straight down for the most of the year at noon, have warmer surface water than polar areas that may have no sun at all for several months each year, and the very steep angles of the sun's rays. Knowing this about ocean water helps us understand that surface ocean temperatures are warm in the tropics, up to 30 or more degrees Celsius, and cooler at the poles, down to -2 degrees Celsius. But when we look below the surface, we find that the oceans are also vertically stratified, and marine scientists recognize a basic three-layered ocean: the upper mixed layer, the main thermocline, and the deep bottom layer. Seawater temperature affects marine organisms by changing the reaction rates within their cells. Although each species